Welcome to my crow pose tutorial. This video assumes that you've already warmed up to some degree. You're welcome to look at some of my warm-ups that are sun salutation based, or just warm up on your own. Otherwise, let's get started. So finding yourself in down dog, let's work on bending a little bit in the limbs. So if you're used to being stick straight in all your limbs, I would recommend finding an alternate way of moving so you can bend both knees. You're probably used to that. And then you can bend the elbows a little bit. And the elbows don't bend out to the side like wings. They bend a little bit back. You can think of them hugging in, but they're clearly not going to bend in at each other. You can bend one at a time, and if you notice, I'm only bending very slightly. And then, of course, you can walk your hands back and take the weight off of your hands for a little bit and get a little bit used to just being upside down, because even though crow pose, technically your hips are a little bit higher than your head, so I can say it's a bit of an inversion. Crow tends to start out pretty high in the hips until we get the strength to do the more traditional version, if we get the strength. I'm going to take the knees down, and we'll roll the wrists out a little bit and just get used to more weight on the hands. And then the last thing we'll go over before we get moving is if you take your arms out to the side and you rest them, and they hands come out towards away, I should say, from the body, especially where the elbow meets, then you have what's called a carrying angle. So your hand support position is not served well as shoulder width, even though that is commonly cued. So I would recommend taking the hands a little bit wider. My fingers tend to cascade off the edges of my mat. This has helped save my shoulders from a lot of grief. So from here, we're going to bend in the knees and take the tail high. Feel the space between the lowest part of your abdomen and the lowest part of your rib cage. Pull in a little bit. And then you might get a slightly flatter spine, and it might feel a little bit like you're doing cat pose in your low belly. Inhale and release that. And then exhale again from the lowest part of your belly. Just zip it up, just a tiny zip up to the lowest part of your rib cage. Take the right knee into the chest with your belly up to rib cage zipped up, and then take the knee to the sky. From here, you can draw the belly in and pull the knee into the shoulders. Your hips might be high, or they might start to come low, in which case your shoulders have to go way forward. This can be a lot of stress on the wrists, so be careful. And then inhale, come back. Exhale, zip from low belly to low ribs. Take the knee either high, medium, or low, or all three. You can do this on both legs. Take a breath or two. Kneel if you need a break. Inhale, take the knee to the chest. Zip from low belly, low rib, and then from here, take the knee high, medium. So the hips are either going high, medium, or low. Start high though. Inhale. This also helps you with stepping through from down dog to like a lunge. High, medium is not so great for stepping through, and low is closer to where you are in crow pose. Good. Let's take a break, chill out for a moment, and shake out those wrists. Okay, so assuming that you've warmed up a bit and you're ready to go for the arm balance, let's do two things so we can maintain the practice a little bit longer and avoid strain in the wrists. I'm going to roll back my mat, maybe twice, maybe once, depending on the thickness. And what I want to make sure is that the heel of my hand is on the mat in such a way that I can still get my index knuckles on the hand portion. Not the finger knuckles, but the hand portion. And all the way around the webbing to the thumb. Okay? And my hands are going wide because I'm honoring that angle that I spoke about earlier. And this just helps decrease the angle in the wrist, so you can maybe do a little bit more, or at least with less pain. Good, so that's the first thing. Then we'll take the blocks and organize the hands around the blocks. Good. That's step 2. Step 3. Takes the blanket. Now you might need to use extra blankets, or if you have a bolster. My bolsters are huge and they wouldn't really work. You would take a bolster or extra blankets if you had longer arms, or if you were working more towards crane pose. So from here, we can come to a squat, and we can just practice what it's like to let the elbows bend back, not out, and hug the arms with the legs like you mean it, and see what it's like to come forward, because that's what you need for an arm balance. You need to be able to shift your weight forward. I'm pressing the index knuckles into the mat because that's where they are. Yours might be on the floor. I'm just seeing what it's like, and then I'm using that cue of lifting the muscles from the pit of the belly to the lowest part of my rib cage, and then I'll lift a foot and then another foot, and that might be where you end for the day. There's another option to go blanketless. This will have you going lower. And remember, you don't want to be rounding the upper spine. You only want to have the low spine in a cat position. The upper spine might round a little, but see if you can find a bit of neutrality. You're not like jutting your chest forward either. And then the same thing, using the belly to lift the legs, and then coming back. Now sometimes we can't get in a very deep squat, and a lot of people will have trouble with this for whatever reason. So let's say you can only squat to about here. You squat on something that's taller, and then it helps you come forward. So let's say I was limited and I couldn't squat this low and only here, and that could be a bone structure problem or a million things. It doesn't matter. This will help sort of alleviate that issue, and then you can come forward, and now your knees are suddenly higher. So even if you can squat, this automatically pulls your knee higher up into your armpits. Sometimes the knees have to start low, as evidenced in the previous portion of the video. And then you can come forward. You can also work the lower tail position, okay, and see how that goes. Now sometimes people have to start their arm balance, their crow up here, because that's just where their strength takes them. And you just sometimes have to go for a position that's not 100% what's pictured, just to get the feel of it and to get a sense of accomplishment. Another thing I like to use to prep for crow pose is blanket sliding. With blanket slides, now if you have room, you don't have to do anything up here. You can take a blanket. Now if you don't have a hardwood floor, then paper plates or really slippery socks will work on a rug, like if you have those polyester socks. And I recommend, if you're not used to this, having a block. It'll give you more room for your legs to fit under your torso, especially if you have short arms. So from here, I'm going to start in a really short dog, and my feet are going to disappear, but I'm going to shore up the muscles in front of the low spine. So we've taken the muscles at the pit of the abdomen, way in front of the low spine. It's quite deep. And then up to the low rib cage. That's two of your bandhas. And then here, my hands are a little bit wider. My fingers are even turned out a bit, and I'm in a plank. This might be enough for you. You might have to come down after a bit for this. Then you can draw your belly up just a little, and then slide the feet in, and either end in a squat or end in a crow pose. Now you can do this multiple times. And you may even have to come down and take a rest. And that's okay. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Come by Ebb and Flow Yoga Tuesdays and or Thursdays at 5 p.m. and see me. And we'll work on all these things and more in person. I like to work with the attitude that the bodies are very different and we don't fit into little boxes. And I also like to take the anatomical and biomechanical knowledge from my many years of coaching gymnastics into just the simplest to the more strong asana. So that way everybody benefits, whether they are just working on Warrior 2 or they're working on arm balances or they're just trying to find a way to move that's pain-free. Hopefully I can have you covered there. Thanks a lot. See you next time.